Dennis here with doityourselfdennis.com, and in this video I'm going to show you how to apply cultured rock, or fake rock some people call it, onto the face of this fireplace. One thing that we had to do, and you may or may not have to do, was there was a brick going across here. So in order to get rid of that brick, and so that we could put a rock looking face on it, I had to take that brick off. So I busted the brick off, and then I formed up a pad and poured concrete on it. And it did kind of two things. It leveled it up, and then it built where the brick was. I didn't need it quite as thick, so it built the base up enough to where and flat and level, that by the time I put the fake rock face on there, it'll be where the brick used to be. So you got to keep that in mind. There's a little bit of figuring you got to do when you do something like that, but you know, every fireplace is different, so I could kind of tell you what I did here, but I don't know if it would help or not. But the first thing you need to do, and some people tell you to do this, some people tell you not to, but I've been told that it's better to put a scratch coat onto the face of the brick. So what we're going to do is we're going to put some mortar, cover this with mortar, and we'll just cover up the brick at first, and then we're going to make it a little thicker so that we can put a scratch coat on it. So let me get set up, and we'll see if we can get some mortar on there. Okay, so you're going to need a trowel like this. I like to kind of get a not too wide and more, or not too long and a little wider. It's a finishing trowel, but it works for this. And you can also, to do the scratch coat, they make a trowel that's got teeth on it, and you can use it, but if you don't have one, what I did was this is a paintbrush cleaner, and it's got these teeth on it, and so this is what I'm going to use for making my scratch coat. That's how I did the top of this. I made a scratch coat on here, and then it's nice to have a little putty knife like this, or not putty knife, but trowel like this. And I don't know, I mean, you don't want it too thin, but you don't want it real thick either. It won't stick real good if it's thick. And of course thin would just be too thin. But, so the way I do it is I put a glob on there, and then let me scrape a little bit of that off of there. So I just start, and you just pull it up. So we're just kind of basically covering the brick right now. But as you can tell, I've taped this off, put some paper down. You can put plastic down. I happen to have this paper, and I taped it a little bit away from the brick, because when I put my rock on there, it's going to take up about 1 inch to 1.5 inches, depending on, you know, how thick the rock is. And I want to be able to pull that tape out from underneath there. So that's something you want to keep in mind. So then we're going to put a little more on there. You just don't press as hard.
The second coat.
For the second coat. Let me get some up here in this corner. It's probably about 1/4 to 3/8 of an inch thick. Put some more on. And it doesn't have to be perfectly flat because you're going to be, you know, the rock's not true, so it's not going to really matter a whole lot. It'll be kind of messy. So that's basically how you do that. When I get a little further, we're going to do the same thing on here. So let me get this on there and then we'll start laying rock. Okay, so you want to let this kind of set up some. You know, you can feel it, it's almost dry to the touch, but you don't want it dry. And so you can take a scraper or something and you're just going to make little lines on it. Just like that. It don't have to be perfect or anything, but it just kind of gives the rock a little something else to bite to. A little bit more. That's about all there is to that, and I'll just continue on down. Alright, so I'm coming on up the wall. Something I wanted to tell you. I told you earlier, it wasn't kind of hard to tell you how thick. But you can kind of see how it is. You know, like that. You should be able to go like that and it'd stay. Pretty much. So, but you don't want it too thick, for sure. So, let me just go a little further. And as you can see, I am not doing just a brick. I'm going ahead and filling it all the way out. I decided I was wasting my time doing that. I think you're okay doing it like this.
All one coat, all one coat.
Something you got to consider is I've got these lines drawn here, and that's for, this gets a wood stove. So the wood stove sits in there and it's got a trim piece that goes around. So I marked where it is. And so actually what I'm going to do is I'm going to lay the rock on the hearth first, and then, or on the face, this side, the rock, and then I'm going to put the slabs on the top, and then I'm going to install the wood stove and the trim so that in case those lines are off just a little bit, I can put my rock right up against that trim. So, you know, it's just something to keep in mind, you know, thing like that. Something I'll point out is this mantle. A lot of times what they'll do is they'll run a rod or a bolt into the wall and make it in there tight, and then drill a hole into the back of the mantle, and that's what actually supports it. These pieces right here are actually not doing anything. They're just kind of for decoration. It's not even touching that one down there. But when I lay my rock around it, it will be touching it. So I just wanted to kind of point that out. So what I did was to pull it out, was I got a flat, what they call a flat bar, and kind of just worked it out. And I'll probably end up taking it all the way off just to make sure I think I'm okay. But I might go ahead and take it all the way off so I can see how long that bolt is in case I need to put a longer one in. Hold it there. Go back and forward. Like I say, it doesn't have to be perfectly flat because you're going to be putting rock on it, so it doesn't really matter. But, so I just thought I'd show you that little bit. Then we'll let it dry for a couple of days, and then we'll start laying the rock on it. I'll show you that when that time comes. Okay, I want to show you how to get right up against like this mantle. So I put my trowel like that, and I just put a little bit at the end. And And I just work it up in there. And work across. I pretty much elected not to take this off. I don't think it's going anywhere, and I'm going to put my rock right up against it, so I think we'll be okay. So, because you could take the mantle all the way off, and then you wouldn't have to worry about doing what I'm doing right now. So, but just thought I'd show you that. Okay, a handy little trowel, or yeah, a little trowel that you can use to get up underneath here. There's a little trowel like this. It's a little, I don't know, it's about 6 inches long. Sometimes you gotta move it real quick. And then you just do the same thing on the sides. Alright, so if your mortar seems to be getting a little hard, a little dried out, you can add just a little bit of water to it. Don't add much. Just mix it in. If you need more, you can add more. Mix it up like that until you get to the right consistency. Some else, you're probably going to want to wear gloves. I wasn't wearing gloves before. It's a good idea to wear gloves. This cement can wreak havoc on your hands, on your skin. I just thought I'd show you that. Alright, so we're going to do this where the brick were protruding out from the wall. These are kind of difficult to do because these fake rock only come in certain sizes, and just trying to make it all look good, it takes some time to plan it out. You just got to really plan it out before you start putting the stuff up there, or you're going to mess up, because you really need to figure out how to do it. This is the last one I've done. If you want to scan over there, you can see all the shims I've got kind of holding the stuff up. So what you want to start out, you need to have some kind of support to be able to hold it up there. So what I did was I put a 2x4 underneath, and the way I came up with how to put it was up here where it's still open. I measured about 4 brick, and it's about to the center, about 10 5/8, 10 3/4 of an inch. So what you need to do is where I didn't fill this in behind this mantle, I've still got some brick showing, or the top of a brick, so I can measure down from it to my 10 3/4 or 10 5/8.
That's a mortar joint.
You know, that should be a mortar joint going across. You're going to want to try to hit a horizontal mortar joint instead of a vertical one. They'd be kind of difficult to hit, but you got a better chance with a horizontal. So I drew my mark, and then I just leveled across. Drew a line. You really don't have to draw a line all the way across, but I did. You just want to be able to measure down from this first brick. So measure down, it's about 2 and a little better than 3/4 of an inch. I can almost see my line. About a little better than 2 3/4 of an inch. So got a 2x4. I'm going to put up here like this. I'm going to screw it in. So I'm going to measure down at 2 3/4 of an inch and drill holes. Let me do that real quick and then I'll show you putting it up. Alright, so the way I do this, I just kind of set it up there. I want to go just a little bit, about 1/8 of an inch maybe below that brick. Set my board, and then I pre-drilled through the wood. So then I'm going to use a masonry bit. Turn that to hammer. It helps to have a hammer drill. So if you do this much, you know the difference between drilling into mortar versus drilling into brick. It'll drill a lot easier into the brick. Alright, so now I'm just going to level across, level it up. Alright, I'm going to drill another hole. These, what do they call them?
Tapcon.
Tapcon screws. They work great for this. Alright, so now I'm going to attach another board on top of that. Just a small board, just a piece of 3/4 inch. Just something to give it a little extra that I can add a shim to. So let me get that screwed onto there. I'm just going to even it up. And I can put my shim in to kind of hold it if I need to. Alright, so we're ready to start putting our rock on. So the way I put my rock on is I put a little bit on there and I like to smooth it out. Just kind of put a flat surface on there. These skinny ones you can't do it, but on the wider ones you can kind of what am I trying to say? Make a pocket, so it creates a little bit more of a suction
In the center.
in the center to help hold it up there. Anyway, so you're going to take the first piece, put it up there. I'm just going to kind of hold it for a second. You might tap on it a little bit, get it seated good. You can take a shim. Put it underneath it to kind of hold it there. Wider one down there. And then you're just going to go on to the next piece, and then what I've got figured is then this piece is going to go in above that. This rock is actually for, they call it dry stack, flat stack, so that the rocks are supposed to lay right on top of each other. But I was going to use these and put actually a little bit of a mortar joint between them. So I've got a little bit of space between there. And I'm going to bring this one all the way up to this brick. And then I'll bring another one in from this direction. Kind of skinny piece. I'll just go from there. All right, I wanted to show you how I ended up shimming some of this up, because sometimes these rock don't exactly want to stick real good. So I took one shim and put it this way, and then put another one and held it up there. Just kind of wanted to show you some different ways of shimming it, you know, to hold it up. You want to make sure you can still get them out pretty easy. You don't want them to get stuck in there. You might pull your rock off trying to get this piece of wood out. Some other things I wanted to kind of tell you about as far as how thick to make your mortar. You want your mortar to be able to squeeze out, be thin enough that it squeezes out when you push the rock on. If it's not squeezing out, then it's probably too thick. I use Lowe's Pro Finish mortar. It's a structural grade mortar to put this on. Wherever you buy your rock from, they'll have a mortar that you can buy. I generally just get mine from Lowe's, and I like the Pro Finish. It's the structural. It's a little more expensive than the standard mortar. And I'll go over that later. Doing things like this up here can be very tedious. The whole thing can be very tedious. I'm just warning you. If you want to really do a good job and get the rock, you know, pretty even, it can be a very tedious job. And these were very tedious. Trying to cover these brick and trying to make the rock all turn out like I wanted it to. Spray bottle. So you can get a spray bottle of water, and maybe just spray where you're getting ready to lay rock at, and spray a little bit on the back of the rock. It kind of helps it to stick a little better. Doesn't suck the moisture out quite so fast. If you're doing a large job, you can also use a garden sprayer filled up with some water and spray it on with that, especially like if you're outside. They've got if it doesn't seem to be sticking very well, you can add some cement, some Portland cement to your mortar. And the type you want to use is Portland cement type 1 or 2. And you don't got to add a lot, just add you know, a cup or so with each bag. And as far as the bags of mortar go, you don't want to mix a whole bag of mortar. You'll never get it all laid before the mortar starts really setting up. I just mix up, you know, maybe a quarter or a third of a bag, and then lay whatever rock I can with that, and then I'll mix more. It's not that hard to mix it. Just don't mix up a whole bag. So that's that. I didn't show how I laid this here. I'm going to show how to lay the rock actually on this, and doing my corners going up. I just thought it'd be easier. What I'm getting ready to do is I'm going to put mortar in my joints. I'll show you that when I get to doing that.
Okay.
Alright, so one other thing, knee savers. Get some knee pads if you're going to be doing much on the floor. It'll save your knees. I wear them all the time, but so I just thought I'd tell you. Okay, so what I've done is I've cut to set these slabs on the top of the hearth. I've gone ahead and cut this one to size, what it needs to be, and let it wrap around the end. And then I've cut the one on the other end, the width it needs to be, and set it where I want it to be. Where ultimately we'll kind of end up, and some will get cut off. But so then I've run a string line from that end to this end, and you might have to be creative when you run this string line so that you have pretty much a straight line going across. You can buy these blocks of wood. It's just it grips the block. Masons use them. You can buy them at Lowe's or Furrow or Home Depot, Home Hardware Store, wherever. And it just wraps around there and it holds the string. So I've got it wrapped around the end and then going around and coming up. I just had to kind of be creative to make this string line stay. So, and so next what I'm gonna do, it's not set, I've just got it dry set. I don't have any mortar underneath it. So I've marked it on the wall here, I've marked it here, and I've marked it back here. And so what I'm doing is I'm gonna measure out to where the sharp edge is on the slab. And about 18 5/8 there, and 18 and almost 5/8 there. So that way I have something to go by, so when I put the mortar underneath it, I can set it down and kind of measure before I wiggle it down and level it up and everything. So let me go ahead and get the mortar set on it, and so I'll have to take this up. I'll leave the other one down there. I'll have to take this one up, but I've got these marks to go by. So I'll put some mortar underneath it, and then I'll leave this set. Alright, so I've got my first slab set. Couple of things I'll show you how I did it when we do this next one. As far as setting your mortar in. One other thing I did do is I went ahead and drew a line on here, and then I held the mortar back about, maybe 3/4 of an inch, or an inch back, and let it squish down, and then I'm going to fill that back in with some mortar, so it's good and solid. The next thing is I'm going to cut the next slab, but something you need to keep in mind is the rock is only going to come to here. I don't know how yours is, but this is how mine is, so I'm just going to show you how mine. So the rock's going to come to here, and then the wood stove, we've got a wood stove insert. So we'll put it in, and then it's got a piece of trim that goes around. So we're going to want to put it up against the trim. So you're going to want to keep that in mind if that's your case, but also where there used to be brick here, it's stuck up about an inch above the floor of the fireplace. It's actually our wood stove sits on this, and then we've got this in the back, and it actually sits on it to take up that space. And that's to keep the ash from kind of coming out if you've got a regular fireplace. So you're going to want to run your slab all the way up against this, so that it helps to keep the ash in if you've got a regular fireplace. If you've got a regular fireplace, you would just go ahead and wrap this, or come up to here probably. Probably wouldn't want to wrap that. Probably could. Probably wouldn't hurt anything. I'm going to clean it off real good, get the soot and whatever off of it. So let me get set up to do this next one, and I'll show you how I set it. Alright, so I'm going to set this next slab, and I go ahead and I spray the mortar bed or the concrete bed I made. I brought the concrete up for the brick that used to be there. I wet it down. I'm going to wet the slab down some. And I make my mortar just a little bit thinner so that it squishes down better.
Made your line.
I made my line. I make it about, 3/4 of an inch thick, 5/8 of an inch. I don't bring it all the way out to the edge or all the way to my line. I kind of evened it out a little bit. And then I chop it up. up on my string. Just kind of jiggle it. And grab my level. You want to put a level on it. Rubber mallet. Alright, so I think that's pretty well got it. Something you'll probably want to keep in mind is you might have to, depending on what kind of a grout joint you want here. I mean, I think this grout joint will be fine. It'll be about 1/2 inch wide, but you might have to cut some of these slabs because they're got the contour all the way around them. So you might have to cut some of that off if you want a good straight. But I elected to just leave it the way it is and go from there. Alright, so when you cut this stuff, you want to get you can use a grinder. They sell special blades. You can buy a masonry blade, a fibrous one. But they don't last near as long. You're better off just go ahead and buy a diamond tip blade. Cuts it very good and it'll last a long time. You want to have safety goggles, mask, and gloves. Stuff cuts pretty easy. Let me get my mask and stuff on. And usually what I do is I'll start out and just follow my line so I can get it going straight, so I can see the line a little better. And then I'll come back and cut the rest of it. But like these slabs, I'll have to turn it over, mark, and cut the other side too to get it cut all the way through. Like I say, now I'll turn it over and cut it from the other side. Alright, so I've already started putting some of my corners on. I thought I'd show you how to put the corners on. Again, I like to put a layer on, just kind of flatten it out. I like to have that little pocket in there. I'm just going to kind of set it where you want it to be. Try to make it kind of level. Just push it on. And then you just just gonna kind of hold it there for a minute. Just gonna hold it. Should be able to leave it go. Might need to hold it a little longer. It doesn't hurt. Clean up a little bit underneath there. What you're looking for when you pull away from it, you want to make sure it doesn't pull away itself too much. It might pull away just a tiny bit, and that's okay. It'll suck up to it as the mortar dries. So that's pretty much how you set your corners. Alright, so as far as putting the flats on, you do them about the same way you do the corners. I like to get my batter mixed up good. Yeah, put it flat. Okay, so again, you got a little pocket there. Helps with the suction. Put it up there. Place it where you want it to be. I have to be able to remove this frame in order to take the wood stove out, and so I can clean the chimney. Check the gap, squish your mortar in, just squish it in some. Just gonna eyeball it to see how level it is. I mean, it doesn't have to be perfect. Rock walls aren't perfect, so just kind of hold it on there. Just press You just gotta want to watch it. Be careful of it. I usually sit back and it'll move back a tiny bit. So I'll push again. Hold it for a few seconds. Or a minute or so. That's pretty much that for that. Just let it sit, and then you just continue on. If you have to use a shim, use a shim. If you can't get it to stay up there good, sometimes they're kind of cantankerous, especially the smaller pieces. It's just not like there's not enough mortar to make it stick good. These wider ones are a little easier to do, So that's about all there is to putting the flats on. Alright, so I just want to kind of show you about how much of this I mix up at a time. Like I say, you don't want to mix up a whole bag. You'll never get the rock set that fast. So I just mix up a little bit at a time. And again, this is Type S Pro Finish Blend Mortar. Buy it at Lowe's. I don't know if you can buy it. Might be able to buy it at Home Depot. I don't know. So, you want to get the extra strength. That's probably about, I don't know, 4 or 5 of the. This is a 2-quart or a quart cup. So about that much, and then this is the Portland cement I use. It's the Type 1, Type 2. Portland cement, and I don't add a lot of it to it, and I don't always use it. I just happen to have this. You know, if I was out on a job and didn't have any, I wouldn't make a special trip to go get some. But you can see about how much I got in there, not a whole lot. I just gotta mix it in there. It just makes it a little stickier. And then you want to use cold water. So I ran this hose because the hose gets hot, and or the water gets hot in the hose. I guess the hose gets hot too. But so you want to run the water until it's cold, and you don't want to really put hot water in there. So you just put it just a little bit. I'm gonna mix it up. Let's use a hose. Kind of get it started. And you can add a little more water. You don't want to add too much though. It'll make it too runny. You can also do this with a paint mixer, like for a 5-gallon bucket of paint. You can do it in a bucket, but this is just how I do it. Mix up about enough that'll last me an hour or two. Like I say, this stuff is pretty tedious to work with as far as trying to get all the rocks set where you want them to be. So that's going to be about the consistency. That's going to be about the consistency you want. If you need to get it in and it doesn't seem like it's thin enough, you can add a little bit more water. I keep a cup of water in there because it's going to dry out as you lay your rock. So
takes time to get everything set up. And they suggest, some places suggest, to lay it out on the floor first, so you got an idea of what rock you're going to use. I tried that. It didn't work out for me very well. It seems like it changes once you start putting it up on the wall and actually sticking it. So I do it piece by piece. So I lost train of thought. So anyway, so this is, you know, as it's going to dry out, so I just add just a tiny bit of water to thin it back out a little bit. This behind me is the same rock that I'm using inside, but that's called dry stack. So there's no joints, and it's very tedious.
No mortar in it.
Or no mortar joints. But it's even more tedious than doing it this way. This way, if you have a mortar joint, it gives you a little bit of playroom to get it laid out right. So I just wanted to kind of show you that, and I'll clean up my trowel or my mixer, my hoe, and I'll go in and start laying rock. Okay, so if you've got a metal surround like this that you have to take off in order to remove a wood stove, I guess fireplace probably wouldn't have it, but unless you had the doors and stuff on a fireplace, you might have to remove it. So if you got a surround like this, I should have already shown you, I should have showed you how I put it up there, but it's basically the same. The main thing you got to watch out for is you need to hold it up there, and you need to get one of these flat trowels and get the mortar out from underneath. Just squish it back up in there. Or if there's excess, you can kind of scrape it off and knock it into your tub or your bucket, whichever way you're doing it. But you want to just kind of get the mortar off of there so that when the mortar dries, you can get your surround off. Otherwise, if you left all the mortar in there, you'd have a pretty hard time getting the surround off. So just thought I'd show you that. I mean, the rock is already set. I just set it a minute ago. But it's basically the same way. Just pay attention to taking the mortar out from underneath. Okay, so the way I do after doing my corners and filling them in, I cut all the pieces first, and I just set them in there as I go up. Then there's not a whole lot different from putting these on than putting the flats on. Get you a little bit of mortar. I'll put a little extra mortar on it, mostly because there's a void right here, because the brick doesn't go all the way up against the wall. I don't know of a real good way to cover that up to keep it, so I don't even put mortar on the back side. I just put it on the front, and you just piece it in there. Just work it where you need it to be. Tap it a little bit. And you're going to hold it. These small pieces stick a little easier than the long, heavier pieces. Like I said, I cut off all the edges where it goes right up against the wall. I make it nice and straight. So that's about all there is to doing this part. The last thing we'll need to do is fill the gaps in with mortar. So we'll do that after these dry. Okay, I wanted to kind of show you how I put the mortar on the back. You know, I usually coat it, but I also wanted to kind of point something out. What you want to do, let's go ahead and get a coat on. Okay, so we've got our coat on. So what you want to do is just kind of smush it down like that,
because of the different thicknesses of the rock, you're going to have to kind of try to decide on how much mortar to put on. You know, to bring it out, like say to the next rock, or you know, sometimes you'll put a thick coat on. And so like when you're scooping it out of here, you can kind of scoop it like that, and it kind of gives you, you know, a decent amount, and it's pretty even. And then just stick it on there. And you can also kind of fold down the back to make it stick a little better. And just try to kind of make it fairly even around all the way around. So that's about that. You can push that down if you want to, but you got your kind of a little pocket there. Helps to make it suck on a little better. I just thought I'd show you that. Alright, so it's time to start putting the mortar in the joint. And you want to mix your mortar up pretty thin, and you want to mix it up a little extra, so you make sure you don't have any clumps in there or lumps that will clog up the hole. So you can see about how runny I've got it. So you buy one of these bags. You can pick them up at Lowe's, Furrows, wherever, or Furrows, Home Depot. Furrows hadn't been around forever. But anyway, so the way I do it is I just kind of fold it at the end, set it down in there. Fill my bag. And you can see it coming out. This might be almost 2 rounds. We'll give it a try. Alright, so what you do is you just start somewhere. Oh, let me point out, I put some tape underneath this joint here to hold that up because there's nothing to support it. So I just put some tape underneath there, and I'll take it off after it's all dry. But you kind of squeeze it together like that, make like a funnel, and you just squeeze it out. You might have to put a couple of layers in because this rock is, you know, some spots are inch and a half thick, so it's kind of hard to get it all back in the back. You should really start from the bottom coming up, but it's too hard to see what I was doing if I was at the bottom. So that's basically all you do. You just squeeze it in. And if you get some on the face of the rock, don't worry about it a whole lot, because once it dries, it'll probably just pop off. You know, like I got a little bit right there. So I'll just let it dry, and then that'll flake off.
Oh gosh.
So you're going to let this set up for 15 to 20 minutes, and then we're going to come back and smooth it out. Okay, so it's time to start, I don't know, finishing it out, whatever you want to call it. So, but I want to point out something you can do if your tip gets kind of gummed up. Just keep a wet rag handy where you can wipe it off. And then also between each batch of mortar I mix, I clean my bag out. So I'll tell you that. There's no real good tool that works perfect for this because there's so many different widths. This is a regular tooling tool for like brick and block. It's got a 1/2 inch on one end, 5/8 on the other.
But you can't really go with this because there's so many different thicknesses. So I've just found different kinds of tools, or not really tools, just things I've got down in my shop. This is just a hanger thing, and I really don't know what this thing is. Or even a hose, piece of pipe, plastic pipe. Probably the one I use the most is this. And you just kind of push it up in there. And you can go over it like this. You can use your fingers too, but you want to be sure and have gloves on. But the whole idea is to push it up inside the joint so that it's, and smoothen it out. So you can take your finger, smush it up in there if it'll fit, or you can use a regular tool. And it kind of works. I don't have much luck with it. So that's pretty much what you do. Like I say, you wait 15-20 minutes. Sometimes it takes less time when it's hot out. You might have to start in 10 minutes. But you just start pushing it in.
And you may need to add some.
And there's areas, like I said earlier, you might have to add some extra back because this brick or block is so thick in spots. So it's hard to get it all the way to the back. And then, you just look over it like, here's an area here that could use a little bit more. And a good thing you can do is take some masking tape, just tear off a little piece like I've done down here. Places that I've added, just make a mark so that you remember where it's at, and so that once you fill it, you remember where it's at. Because sometimes you get ahead of yourself. So that's all about is to doing this, and I'll show you when it's done. Okay, if you're between batches, or not really between batches, but you got more left over, I generally only do one bag at a time, and then I let it dry, and then start pushing it in. But to keep your bag from clogging up, I try to squeeze as much of it out as I can. Just try to get every little bit of it out, and then I just set it to the side until I'm ready to do my next one. Occasionally, when you're doing this, it'll clog, and there's two things. If you can squeeze and squeeze, sometimes it'll push the clod out. Then you just mix it back into the original batch. Or the other problem would be your mortar is too thick. So those are the two reasons why it clogs. Like I say, clean your bag out regularly. I do it every batch just to make sure it doesn't get clogged up. Just thought I'd point that out real quick. Okay, a couple more little tips. If you seem to be having trouble with getting lumps in your mortar, and hey, you have a hard time pushing it through the bag, you can take just an old cake batter mixer and put it in a drill, and then just mix it up with it, and it'll mix it up a little better than using a hoe. They have big paddles that you can mix this stuff up in a 5-gallon bucket. You can use a paint mixer, and then they also have mortar mixers but they're pretty big, and they go in a 5-gallon bucket. So you can do that to make it a little better. And also, something I'm doing is I've got these rubber gloves. You can pick them up for, I guess, $10 for 10 of them, 10 pairs at Lowe's. And I just take my fingers, and after it's not set up, but after I've gone over it several times with the different little tools, I'll rub it. And it kind of seems like it seals it up. And these rubber gloves work real good. Doesn't seem like it wears them out real bad or anything. Something else I'll point out is these different tools that I'm using. I've got them of varying widths. Like this is probably 3/8, this is 5/16, a 1/4 inch. you know, so I can get into all the little tight spots.
Just thought I'd show you that real quick.
Alright, so the only thing left to do is you might want to come back and get a brush, you know, like this, and just kind of brush the brick or stone off. And if you got spots like this, can you zoom in on that?
I am.
That you got a little piece of mortar, you can kind of chip it off a little bit. Just want to kind of go over everything, just get rid of the loose stuff, and that's about it. Thanks for watching. Check out my other videos. If you like this video, hit the like button, subscribe, and check out my other videos at doityourselfdennis.com. Thanks again for watching. All right, something else you can do is if you got a little bit of residue from the mortar, you can also wipe it off with a wet rag, and it'll clean it off pretty good. Just wipe it off some, and it'll get rid of that residue.